What's the most overrated city in the world? Vegas these days feels like paying triple just to lose money under neon lights. All hype, no soul. Might as well play online slots with a bottle of vodka and a lamp pretending to be a disco ball. I visited Vegas in 2018 and, from this post, it appears as though it was good timing. In my experience, the most shallow, vapid, sterile, soulless, brainless, materialistic, chauvinistic, superficial, overpriced, elitist, featureless, characterless place on the planet. An absolute culture vacuum, bereft of any architectural or historical beauty or significance. Dubai isn't the end of the world, but you can see it from there. Edit, apologies, forgot to add, atrocious human rights record. Misogyny and mistreatment of women. Don't forget, built by near slaves. I wish I could upvote this more than once. You summarized everything I hate about the city so beautifully. For years, the only thing that made Vegas bearable was that it was cheap. For the current price point, there are much better options. Just spent a few days there. Take into mind, it's in a desert, and hotter than fuck all. Vegas was the worst investment in entertainment that I have ever made in my life. The entertainment was great, the food was all delicious. I could have spent all the money I spent on Vegas at home and bought groceries for a year. Not worth it, no matter how cool it is. Good Lord, I live in one of the highest cost of living cities in the US, and my eyebrows shot up at 40 martinis. That's just wild. I was already clutching my pearls at 14. Coffee. No single cup should be over 10, and even that's pushing it. Agree. The buffets are literally the only thing I really enjoyed there. I don't eat a lot, but the options and scale of them were fun, each one having its own personality. Everything else there was just MEH. The buffets used to be subsidized by the gambling profits, but dang, no way I'm spending $75 for a seafood buffet of randomized chlamydia dishes. I went for the first time 2 years ago, and I ended up liking it way more than I expected to. But I also wasn't there solely to gamble and get wasted. We planned a couple of nice dinners, Penn and Teller and Omega Mart. But otherwise, we kind of just figured it out while there. Ended up doing the Mafia Museum and the hilariously stupid, but entertaining, Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. Otherwise, it was a cool place to walk around and stumble into strange spots. It is expensive, and I can't vouch for what it's like 2 years later, but I left wanting to go back at some point. What are the other options you recommend? Online betting and a bottle of vodka in bed. This and a home-cooked meal. You basically get to save your money and spend it on gambling. Oddly, New Orleans, a lot of its character restaurants, etc., are largely unchanged over the last 20 years. If you avoid the touristy French Quarter, there are some incredible dives, great food and dining, and you can gamble at Harrah's in the middle of the city. Good local music, affordable activities around the city and water. And if you want cheap drinks, you can still find them everywhere. I did 2 bachelor parties there in the last 4 to 5 years, and they were an absolute ball. Edit, shout out to Bacchanal Wine in the Bywater neighborhood. One of the best spot in all of NOLA. Even the overpriced French Quarter bars and restaurants are cheaper than a burger on the strip. And mediocre food in NOLA is still pretty tasty. It really is. We did an upper scale dinner in the Quarter, and the cocktails were half the price of what we paid at Guy Fieri. The Foudre Sanks de Marfa were so much better in NOLA too. Vegas got greedy AF. The French Quarter is fine except for about 5 blocks of Bourbon Saint. The rest is very enjoyable. Another great city to visit is Savannah. Even the French Quarter has some charming parts and quite a bit of history. Vegas is a manufactured city that is now overpriced garbage. I had Dubai as a transfer once. Nowadays, my whole image about Dubai has everything but shattered. Knowing this is a hideout for the worst criminal scum of my country, while I couldn't even go to the city myself, and the tallest skyscraper relied on septic tanks for years, and its car brain on steroids, combined with how fake everything is. It's definitely Dubai. Not only that, but the people who say it's great are some of Earth's most insufferable humans. I judge people who like Dubai. You can tell a lot about a man by his opinion on Dubai. You look like you enjoy Dubai. Derogatory. Dubai is what happens if you let a rapper design a city, but then they let his strict single mother make all the rules. Billy Wayne Davis? Dubai looks like the creators of the Vegas Strip and the Cheesecake Factory got together and made a city. So no sitting on the couch? Leave the plastic on. How does the neo-slavery fit into this analogy? I mean, a lot of rappers seem to get in trouble for human trafficking, including Diddy, so that kinda fits too. Agreed. Dubai is a city covered in a thin veneer of luxury and excess. Dig a little and it gets ugly real quick. Low-wage workers sweeping streets, slum-like labor camps, alleyways that smell like hot garbage, and most bass clubs are filled with Asian or Russian prostitutes. Yes, it has no soul, just cookie-cutter luxury buildings. Went there last year and it was boring as hell. Don't go to Dubai. It cheapens you as a person. Cairo, Egypt. The pyramids are objectively very cool, but man, complete nightmare otherwise. Totally agree. And really dangerous, especially for women. Can attest, I traveled there as a woman in a medium-sized group and felt distinctly unsafe. Would never recommend a solo female traveler or even a few women traveling together go to Cairo without a larger group, or better, a guided tour. I'm a travel agent and there are only a small handful of companies I'll book for Egypt. Adventures by Disney is actually my go-to, because the name is big enough that their contractors will do anything to keep clients safe and happy. I can definitely see that, especially as a tourist. I'm a guy from the US, but I visited Cairo once to visit a female friend from there. You definitely need to be able to speak Arabic and shut down shit from people or you're going to get harassed constantly, it seems. Go back to Party City where you belong. Most people think it sucks, which is a way higher rating than it deserves. Could be worse, could be Bakersfield or Stockton. I just stay out of the Central Valley altogether. Has a California ever been asked to rank which Central Valley cities suck the most? That would be an entertaining post. Be the change you want to see. I think someone from the Central Valley should make the post. It would come off really elitist if a Bay Area guy like myself made a post about how much the Valley sucks lol. It would be Dutchy. Let the locals fight it out. Nothing pisses us off more than Bay Area and LA people hating on the Valley. It sucks here, but only we can say that. My first visit to USA ever was to Fresno for a work assignment. The flight attendant on the first leg to SLC asked me where I was going. I told him and he just said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You must have been so excited till then. But you're near Yosemite and Sequoia Kings Canyon, which by my estimate is a paradise on earth. The Sierra Nevadas are a marvel to behold." I lived and worked in Sequoia for a year and we made frequent trips to Fresno. It wasn't much, but after being in the woods for extended periods, it felt like the biggest metropolis imaginable. Still, it always felt good getting back to the mountains. When I was a kid, I used to think Fresno was a super desirable city to live in. Why did I think this? Because in the movie Monsters vs. Aliens, the main character was going to marry that weather guy, moved to Fresno, and they seemed somewhat excited about it. So, I just thought that Fresno must be a cool place to live. Boy, was I certainly disappointed when I found out the truth. Fresno, when you want to see why everyone in Breaking Bad was doing meth, but you want to be back in SF in time for dinner. I lived in Fresno in the early 90s and it was actually awesome. Surfing or skiing was a decision you could make any given morning and be doing either by noon. Clovis schools were some of the best in the country, and the sports were excellent. Great place to raise a family. I went back to visit friends around 2010 and didn't recognize it. I can't imagine was 15 more years has done, considering the rapid downward trajectory. I lived there for a few years. I will add my agreement. The only things it is going for it are slightly lower costs of living than coastal CA, but not low enough to justify living in Fresno, and proximity to Yosemite and Sequoia National Parks. The rest of it sucks. The 115F about 46C summers, the fucking dust that coats everything, the smell of cows, the gang activity, and more. I think every city in the Central Valley boasts itself on how close it is to better places. Being from Bakersfield myself and relatively close to the mountains, beaches, desert, Vegas kinda all within a few hours drive, it was always a weird flex. Dubai, Miami and Vegas. Miami, Dubai. Any city with rapid growth in the last 20 years. Miami FL. What a superficial wasteland. The amount of influences there is truly staggering. If I have to compliment living in LA at all, the influencers at least live their lives mostly like they do in the videos they post. In Miami, they will rent out cars and even clothing for videos and then go back to their shared shoebox apartments. It always had a rap for vanity, but it was manageable and there was still tons of local culture. Now it's an expensive shithole filled with OnlyFans, models, and all manner of grifters. The COVID influx really pushed it over the edge for me. There's still good parts about Miami, but I'd never recommend anyone to move there. I lived in Paris for 5 years. There was a completely unsubstantiated, yet vaguely amusing rumor that the Japanese embassy provided crisis intervention services for its citizens who came to Paris and were distraught at the reality of what they saw versus the idealized Disney-like fantasy they expected. I loved living there though. I've heard about this. Like, the Japanese adore the concept France so much that there's a specific depression they get when they visit, and it doesn't match up to Rose of Versailles. I hated Paris as a teen. I thought it was a really grey city that wasn't that pretty. But coming back as an adult, I think it's a wonderfully practical city. I love the work they've done with noise, bikes, subways, etc. LAS Vegas. Fat people in Plasticland. I used to love Vegas and would have argued with you, like, 15 years ago. It used to be the perfect mix of cheap and expensive. You could eat dinner for $5 or spend $1,000. And tons of stuff to do. Now, everything there is so expensive. You can't even get a bottle of water for less than 10. It's crazy how much the city's tourism industry has fumbled what made Vegas great. I didn't mind going and dropping a dumb amount of money on a few dinners if the rest of my trip was reasonably priced. I do mind if the same Starbucks sandwich that's $7 everywhere else is $16 in Vegas. Screw that. My theory about Vegas is that, back in the day, it was all about laundering money for the mob. They wanted people to put as much cash as possible into gambling because that seems like a great cash-only process to legitimize dirty money. Not only that, they did not want anyone to spend money on auditable things like hotel rooms, food, drinks, entertainment, etc. That money was not nearly as easily laundered as gambling money. So you make the trackable stuff super cheap to draw in lots of people, and that lends plausibility to their inflated gambling numbers. Today, there is probably much less money laundering, or it's much harder to launder money through gambling due to better controls. Plus, the mob found out that casinos can be super profitable in and of themselves. So as the mob moved out and other people started building legitimate casinos with the prime goal to make money vs. launder money, the prices started getting higher and higher. Watch Ozark. It's exactly this. That's exactly what happened. Businesses bought the mob out and started doing business things. Howard Hughes in particular had a mission and the money to get the mob out of Vegas. The actual town of Gatlinburg, not the national park, but the city itself. It is a tourist trap. Obscure choice, but Otaru in Hokkaido was my biggest letdown ever. People hype it up as the Japanese Venice. No, it's a mostly industrial shithole with like one canal. I feel like Otaru's charm is heavily dependent on the time of year day you go. It's absolutely enchanting if you're there in the evening during their Winter Light Festival. But I feel like it'd be a lot less interesting without the snow. Haha. LAS Vegas, only artificial stuff and grift. I'm going to throw in the Mexican LAS Vegas. Cancun. Another soulless, grim place tailored for Americans. Cancun. At least if you don't want to be constantly lied to and scammed. Going out west to Playa del Carmen. It's less crowded, and there's way fewer people out to fuck you. Yeah, agreed. Went to Cancun my first time and walked out of the airport and it looked like somewhere in Florida. We were headed for Playa del Carmen and it was 1,000 times better down there. I would argue the whole Quintana Roo mostly sucks, at least the major parts. Cancun, PDC, Tulum, all of them are full of violence and corrupt cops, but cater to different crowds. Cancun for the boomer resorts, PDC for the white trash expats, Tulum for the influencers, Nashville, now expensive and crowded. For real, expensive drinks, good musicians dragging around their gear to every bar and playing the same songs, bad food and tourist traps. East Nashville has good food, but you have to drive around scooters with multiple people on them and dodge dueling baccalaureate parties. I went for the first time after they cancelled Bonnaroo, and I had a great time. Granted, I knew I was about to get $500 back from Bonnaroo, so that helped with the cost. And being drunken idiots listening to music was our weekend plan anyway, so we enjoyed that aspect of it. All I know is that Detroit is severely underrated. Shh, don't tell anyone. Pyongyang. North Korean leadership says Pyongyang is the most beautiful city in the world, in the greatest country in the world. Evidence says otherwise. Since I can't believe it wasn't in the top few comments, a lot of its issues stem from endless urban sprawl. Subdivisions on top of subdivisions with a strip mall in between them. By area, Orlando Metro is massive, but has no density. It takes over an hour to get from one side Disney to the other Lake Mary Deltona. And that's just one road. The downtown area is a pathetic 6x3 block grid of basically zero interesting things other than walking around the lake. Outside of a few very, very good Puerto Rican and Cuban restaurants, there are no good local food options. Everything is an Olive Garden or an Outback Steakhouse or whatever else Darden has acquired and ruined over the past 20 years. There are plenty of parks and splash pads and outside things, but that doesn't matter because 8 months out of the year being outside is like walking through a steam room. Even Disney, long heralded as the "we live where you vacation" for locals, is inaccessible for many people. No restriction. Annual passes 10 years ago were for 100. Now they're 1,550. More cornerstone to issues in Orlando is that because the entire economy is run by hospitality and tourism, local wages are determined by the prevailing rate of Disney, Universal, airlines, and hotels. These wage floors bleed into healthcare, education, and what little manufacturing there is. I finally moved out of Orlando when I realized I could make 30 more doing the same job in a city only a couple hours away. Have you ventured off Colonial and entered the Vietnamese part of town? Well established and tons of great food there. Saint Platen is not overrated, it's just never been rated at all. Nobody ever noticed it exists. I don't even know if it's in Austria or Switzerland. My wife and I stopped in Monaco for about 3 hours as we made our way through the French Riviera. Walked the entire main area, went to the aquarium, and got coffee sandwiches from a cafe in the old town. I think that was just about perfect. It's a really beautiful place to look at, but I doubt it's much fun unless you have oil money. Americans just naming other American cities, lol. It's as far as most of us travel. I don't think it's overrated. Almost everyone hates it, especially the residents. I've never seen someone on the internet ever say anything nice about Cairo. I've seen lots of people say it's the worst place they've ever visited though. Please don't say New York. I'm ready to argue. People usually just go Manhattan and think it's the entire NYC. But the most overrated city is definitely Vegas. Off the strip, it's just a normal town, but in a desert, New York is a double-edged sword. You certainly can't call it boring. Whatever you're into, New York probably has world-class facilities dedicated to it. It has history, culture, coherent neighborhoods with their own interesting feels, and also exhilarating diversity. But it also has some serious grit. The degree of litter and homelessness, even in its nicer parts, is kind of jarring to outsiders. The noise, even in the wee hours of the morning, slowly drives people insane that haven't learned to tune it out. And the cost, my God, the cost of things. So I guess what I'm saying is that New York can't be the most overrated city in the world because it actually delivers in many ways. It's fun, but it'd lose my mind if I had to live there. The New Yorker is ready to argue? No way. New York is the most properly rated place in the world. If you think NY is dirty and expensive, you are correct. If you think NY is full of energy and offers limitless possibilities, you are also correct. IMO, there is no place like NY in the entire planet. It's the GOAT city and it's not even close. Love Manhattan. Central Park constantly surprises me with its beauty. Dallas, Texas. What a backwater cesspool of high school level selfishness and materialism. Are we just naming cities we don't like? No one rates Dallas high lol. It doesn't help that downtown isn't concentrated. You have like 45 downtowns, none of which are particularly impressive, or have the gravity to concentrate the energy and creativity of the metro. It feels like there are 5 Des Moines-sized towns spread apart by 20-40 minutes instead of one large city. Moved to Dallas from Michigan. Couldn't believe how bad the drivers were. The cultural history is unremarkable and the sprawl is insane. The only redeeming quality is Fort Worth to the west and the amazing Mexican food and BBQ in the outskirts of the city. Lived in Dallas feet. Worth Metroplex for 15 years, moved to Seattle, and I do not miss. The lack of culture is mind-blowing when you live in a city that has a ton of culture. San Antonio, Seattle showed me this. All the city has is where JFK got shot. Endless sprawl that isn't stopping and making it take an hour to get anywhere in the city. Endless amount of tollways and the only way of getting around in a timely fashion, with the assumed expectation that you own a car, a requirement to live there. Atrocious weather, from heat to cold to storms frequently. No sense of community when everyone is in their cars driving to the 5,000th strip mall. Not experience each other outside of road rage. And this isn't even considering state politics and their ramifications. Moving to Seattle from DFW has been an amazing fresh breath of air literally, and has shown me what a city is supposed to feel like. It's like Houston for people who hate flavor. I knew my city would show up here, lol. Yeah, it's obnoxious depending on where you go, and if you have a lot of money or only want to go drinking and eating from place to place, it's great. But if not, you have to put some effort in to have a good time. Realistically though, if you want to avoid the cesspool, then stay away from the places it's concentrated. It's a massive metro area and there are great pockets everywhere, but if your experience in DFW is the fake-ass fancy areas, you're gonna get a bad impression. I do wish there was more access to the outdoors though. Honest question, in your estimation, what ranking does the general public give to Dallas? In my personal experience, people don't think of Dallas at all. And if forced to give a ranking, it would likely rank fairly low. It would rank low not because it has a bad reputation, but because it doesn't have a reputation at all. The minds of most, it just kinda exists. One word to describe Dallas, beige. I'm from Dallas and moved to Oakland. It was like a breath of fresh air. Sure, it's rough around the edges, but the people seem a bit more focused on their hobbies, are relaxed. And I take the train to SF and work a tech job. I hated the heat in Dallas and having to get in the car for 25 minutes at a time to go anywhere. Then I have friends in Plano, Keller, Carrollton, South Dallas, Mansfield. Next thing you know, you hardly see your friends because they're all over the place. As a Dallas TX resident, can confirm. Overpriced, horrible weather, bad drivers, awful politics. Dubai looks soulless with no culture. Mainly because that's exactly what it is. Circle jerk of the same answers. Vegas, Dubai, Miami. Repeat 1,000 times. That's not overrated. It's hated, which is not the same. Miami. Jesus H. The pretentiousness. As a Floridian, I agree to this. Disney is all they have, and Disney kinda blows. Unpopular opinion, but I disagree. Orlando has such an amazing food scene. I know I'll get some hate, but I love Winter Park and the UCF area. More than other college towns, TBH. Milan. Entirely mediocre town for tourism, great to live in. I've watched footage from the city, and it just seems like there's so little to do. I hate to say this, but I've never liked Vegas. It's flat and ugly, and I hate flying in there with all the turbulence. Plus, it's depressing and disconcerting to see so many people gambling their precious money away. Maybe not in the world, but in the USA, Austin TX is only exciting if you grew up in the sticks or any other boring tier city. Charlotte, Jacksonville, Tampa, Phoenix. 6th Street is so underwhelming. I've seen cooler shit in small towns in New England or on the Jersey Shore than the entirety of 6th Street. I definitely avoid 6th Street like the plague when I'm there. Rainy used to be cool, but then every developer wanted to be able to advertise that they were on Rainy and destroyed it. Congress is cool, but also going through the same thing. Still love Austin as a whole though. Austin is cool, just not half as cool as it likes to think it is. Locals avoid 6th like the plague, it was never cool. Rainy Saint used to be cool, but it's now way over gentrified. SoCo is the same. Austin is alright, but it is definitely way overhyped. It was already losing a lot of its charm, and then all the tech and finance bros moved in and killed it completely. I've lived in Austin for 13 years. I'm from the Jersey Shore and lived in Boston for 8 years. Thinking that 6th Street is all Austin has to offer is myopic. There's plenty that's great about this city. That's like thinking Broadway is all Nashville has to offer. Back in the early 90s, 6th Street was pretty fun. Blues club next to a punk bar next to a cowboy bar. Dubai. It's in my opinion, the crowing jewel of what is wrong with the modern world. A leisure palace in the desert built on slavery and exploitation, with genuinely impressive engineering feats combined with horrific urban design. I could go on for hours. Niagara Falls is one of the worst places I've ever been. It's shameful to BC. It's built around a genuinely beautiful natural wonder and totally cheapens it. Go to Niagara on the Lake instead. Vegas. No question. Great NHL arena though. No Australian cities named because it's a lead over here. It's hard to be disappointed when you have no expectations. We went to Australia a few years ago. Stayed in Sydney for a few days. It was a beautiful city. The Botanic Garden was beautiful. The harbour was amazing too. It was so clean. We drove the coast and then visited relatives in Queensland. I really liked it. I love Melbourne, but I think Time Out in particular hypes it up simply because people who run it happen to live there. A weekend visit isn't necessarily for everyone. Everyone is scared to visit because of the huge spiders and a 100 other animals out to get you. Australian cities are amazing for the most part, but are terribly expensive to live in. I feel for the locals who get priced out of their own cities. I travelled around Australia back in '96 and loved it. My least favourite part, which I thought was going to be my favourite, was Tasmania. We really just visited the national parks, but spent a couple days in Hobart, which I didn't care for. Salem, Massachusetts. It's not the most famous, and not the most visited, but I 100 think it's the most overrated. It's a Nohiasville suburban city of 45.0 with 4,000 public parking spaces that sees upwards of 1 million visitors each October. It's not spooky, it's not haunted, it's not witchy. It's a poorly managed shit show and the splash zone encompasses the whole region. But Halloween is my Christmas and Aluavuv spooky season, and I did some research and found out I'm a distant relative of whichever victim of the trials I can remember the name of at the time. Salem is everything. Overrated, sure, but I still love going up to Salem every year after Halloween. Any city in Texas, Jackson Hole, everything is insanely overpriced. LAS Vegas. When I went, it was a sea of bald, fat 50-year-old guys wearing jeans shorts with their t-shirts tucked in, all looking like walking thumbs. All thinking they were going to get some sort of taste of Sin City, but it was all just them walking around. It was so pathetic. I ended up getting an Uber. The driver was a local. He agreed the strip is kinda like that and suggested the old Vegas, Fremont Saint. And that was at least kind of campy, but still very underwhelming. Vegas has this reputation that it is a hedonistic, almost lawless land, full of adult fun and entertainment, but it's just a bunch of desperate fat old men trolling for pussy, with the occasional middle-aged woman carrying a giant can of malt liquor in one hand and a Marlboro Red in the other. No thanks. Zurich. Insanely expensive, very superficial and impossible to get to know people. Lived there in 2008. Probably one of my favorite cities. Is Zurich even rated? Though, besides business travelers, I've never had anyone tell me they're going to Zurich. Also, as a business traveler, it's awesome. Convenient, efficient, decent food if you know where to look, pretty, etc. I loved living there, but I wouldn't recommend it as a tourist destination. Miami. If Instagram was a person, it would be Miami. Overpriced. Populated by NASA zombies. My town is a shithole, but Dublin somehow makes it feel like heaven. Austin is literally a collective of trailer parks and ghastly expensive. Orlando, the parks have been too expensive and food in the parks total crap. $4,000 for a 3-day trip to Universal or Disney. 90 Harry Potter wands. 18 butter beer and $140 Harry Potter robes. 18 for a bad burger in the parks. I don't know about the world, but in the US it's Vegas. Sure, he'll get downvoted for this one, but Venice. It absolutely stinks. When it floods you have to walk round on tables. Extortionate prices for everything, crowds everywhere. Tourists should stay clear to save the place from actually sinking, and also because it is just nothing special. I hated Venice when I lived in Italy. Sure, there are canals, but it smells like a dumpster in the summer, and every other city in Italy is better in every other way. If I had to name an overrated American city, I would say Austin. Texas. Austin was amazing for so long, but the tech industry finally ruined it. The types of people who made the culture so vibrant can no longer afford to live there. Sydney. If you can afford to live near water, it's okay, until you have to spend forever commuting just to afford to live near water. Everywhere else you commute further. Have no beaches within an hour and still can't afford your mortgage. Paris was gorgeous, but I was let down by the amount of garbage and just blatant pissing. Everywhere. Couldn't go anywhere without seeing and smelling human urine. After seeing Paris in all of these posts, reading about the Paris syndrome, etc., I was prepared for seeing and smelling some nasty things when I visited recently. But I was very pleasantly surprised. Didn't see anything beyond what I've seen in other major European cities. The architecture was incredible and the people very nice. I was in Paris for the first time last January. I had low expectations based on reports from family members who visited before. Did not experience any of the negative stuff people are mentioning. The streets were clean, no smell of piss, friendly people and lots to do and see. It was expensive, but that's because we did go full on tourist and stay and eat close to the main attractions. I think it was cleaned up a lot for the Olympics in 2024 and was still looking good. Berlin. A lot of tourists come here and either get shit-faced in disgusting clubs or can't figure out what is actually to see here. My main disappointment on visiting Berlin was that it doesn't as much of an old historic feel compared to other European cities, but that was largely my fault for not remembering that most of it got bombed. The disgusting clubs are part of what makes Berlin so magnificent and hilarious. What a place. Absolutely love Berlin. Austin. It's not really weird. The traffic sucks and everything is way overpriced. Dubai and Vegas are the obvious answers. Pains me to say this, but New York City is headed the same direction. I grew up and still live in NYC. While I don't necessarily miss Phoenix itself, the immediate surrounding desert is so fucking gorgeous. I lived in the East Valley and was out in the superstitions like twice a week kayaking and doing desert stuff. Then the further north you go, the more beautiful it gets. It's also not as hot outside of town because it's no longer a concrete death trap of heat and dead hookers. Came here to say this. People who recently moved, the weather is great. I love it here. Where else have you lived? Name some even shittier place. Well, if that's your frame of reference. Okay, the weather is shit. The culture is shit. People hide in their houses from the sun 9 MOS out of the year. Wonder why nobody gets along. No one rates this city. So it cannot be overrated, can it? A monument to man's arrogance is what it is. In today's thread, any city where people actually go to have social lives and have fun. So you can only have social lives in the likes of Dubai, Vegas, Miami or Cairo then, as opposed to London, Rome, Barcelona or any other major city. You need to get out more. Miami, LA, LAS Vegas. La place is a shit hole. Don't say you hate LA if you don't travel past the 10. Give LA a great public transit system and it would be one of the best major cities in the country. Compared to 90 of American cities, it's awesome. Way more to do and surrounded by beautiful landscape. The traffic is absolute ass though. Overrated to visit. Great to live in. There is no one LA though. I lived on the west side and loved it. My friend in Silver Lake loved that. I put friend in quotes because I only saw him in person twice in 3 years. That drive was brutal. Low-key Paris. Hate to say it, but it's kind of dirty and expensive. I'm really curious. Did you expect Paris? Quite possibly the #1 tourist destination on the planet to be cheap. Anywhere considered a vacation spot in Jamaica. Dublin. It's a dump and is full of scumbags and drug addicts. Not to mention it's overpriced and overhipped. I'm assuming you went down O'Connell Street and not Grafton Street. One stinks like shit, has loads of homeless and is just awful. The other is actually quite nice, has great music and the streets coming off it are lovely. I know this, because my first trip to Dublin I went to Grafton Street with my daughter and loved it. Then I went again with my daughter, and we ended up on O'Connell Street, and we both looked at each other and wondered what the fuck we did wrong. It was awful. Most parts of Dublin are alright. I wouldn't recommend going north of Temple Bar though.